Silence is not rejection. It is information. Chasing after being ignored does not create closeness. It creates distance. Power returns the moment you stop pursuing and start standing still. Being ignored can trigger something deep inside the human mind. The unanswered message, the delayed response, the sudden emotional distance. All of it can stir anxiety, self-doubt, and an urge to explain, chase, or fix. Yet this urge, though understandable, is the very thing that weakens your position. Ignoring silence and responding with calm self-possession is not emotional coldness. It is wisdom. The moment someone ignores you, life is offering a lesson about alignment, self-worth, and inner authority. Chasing after someone who ignores you sends a silent message. It communicates urgency, insecurity, and a fear of loss. Even when unspoken, energy speaks louder than words. The more you chase, the more you announce that your emotional balance depends on their attention. Life mirrors this imbalance perfectly. Instead of restoring connection, chasing confirms distance. Silence grows louder because need amplifies absence. Ignoring is not always cruelty. Sometimes it reflects confusion, distraction, or inner conflict. But regardless of the reason, your response determines the outcome. When you react emotionally, you surrender control of your inner state. When you remain composed, you reclaim it. Power is never loud. Power is quiet, grounded, and patient. Silence handled correctly becomes a turning point, not a setback. There is a deep psychological and spiritual truth at work here. Reality responds to self-concept. When you believe you must chase to be valued, life confirms that belief by withholding. When you know your worth without explanation, life adjusts to that certainty. Attention flows toward confidence, not desperation. People lean in when you lean back into yourself. Ignoring someone back is not the goal. Emotional games create more confusion. The real shift happens internally. You stop chasing because you no longer believe attention determines your value. The moment you detach from the outcome, you rise above it. Detachment is not indifference. It is clarity. You care without clinging. You desire without depending. Silence has a strange power. It forces both sides to confront their inner state. When you stop chasing, you stop feeding the dynamic that caused the distance. The other person is left alone with their own thoughts, expectations, and assumptions. In that space, curiosity grows. Energy shifts. The absence of pursuit invites reflection far more than emotional pursuit ever could. Chasing tries to fix the outer world. Stillness corrects the inner one. When the inner world stabilizes, the outer world reorganizes automatically. This is why calm often brings results faster than effort. When you withdraw emotional urgency, you allow life to respond naturally, and life always responds to certainty. Ignoring can feel personal, but often it is impersonal. People act from their inner states, not from your worth. Understanding this frees you from overreaction. You stop internalizing silence as failure and start seeing it as information. Information empowers. It shows you where imbalance exists, not to blame, but to adjust. The greatest mistake people make when ignored is abandoning themselves. They overthink, overtext, over-explain. In doing so, they betray their own emotional center. Self-respect erodes quietly. The mind becomes noisy, peace disappears. All of this happens not because someone ignored you, but because you forgot yourself. Choosing not to chase is choosing self-respect. It is saying, I remain whole, even without immediate validation. This choice changes your posture, your tone, your energy. You become grounded. Grounded energy is magnetic. It signals emotional maturity, confidence, and self-control. These qualities draw attention naturally. There is also a deeper law at work. What you resist emotionally persists. The more you fight silence, the more it dominates your thoughts. When you accept it calmly, it loses power. Acceptance is not surrender, it is mastery. You stop wrestling with what is and allow movement to occur organically. Ignoring tests your faith in yourself. It challenges the belief that you are chosen, wanted, and valued. Passing this test does not require action. It requires stillness. When you trust your worth without proof, reality must eventually reflect it. This is not magic. It is alignment. The outer world follows the inner assumption every time. Chasing teaches others how to treat you. It teaches them that distance brings pursuit, that silence brings attention. Stillness teaches something very different. It teaches that your presence is a privilege, not a convenience. It teaches that access to you requires respect, not neglect. Lessons taught silently are remembered longest. Many connections are restored, not because someone chased harder, but because they stopped chasing entirely. The energy shifts from pressure to curiosity, from need to intrigue. When you no longer demand attention, attention often returns naturally. And when it doesn't, clarity arrives instead. Both outcomes are victories. Ignoring also reveals truth. It shows you who values connection and who values convenience. Chasing blurs this truth. Stillness reveals it. When you stop chasing, you allow reality to show its hand. You stop guessing and start seeing clearly. There is strength in restraint, responding less, not reacting emotionally, and maintaining dignity reshapes dynamics. This strength is felt even if never spoken. Silence paired with self-assurance speaks louder than explanations ever could. You do not lose people by not chasing. You lose illusions. What is real does not require pursuit. What is aligned does not need convincing. What is meant for you does not ignore you indefinitely. And if it does, it was never aligned to begin with. Confidence grows when you realize that your peace is more important than someone's attention. When peace becomes your priority, desperation dissolves. You stop measuring your worth by responses and start measuring it by how well you honor yourself. Ignoring becomes powerless when you no longer fear it. Fear gives silence its sting. Courage removes it. Courage is not confronting or demanding. It is trusting yourself enough to remain calm. The paradox is simple. The less you chase, the more centered you become. The more centered you become, the more attractive your energy feels. Attraction is not something you do. It is something you allow by being grounded in self-worth. Life responds to the version of you that stands tall in silence. When you stop chasing, you stop leaking energy. That energy returns to you as clarity, strength, and emotional stability. From that state, everything else aligns, whether through reconnection or redirection. If someone ignores you, let them. Let them sit with the absence of your pursuit. Let life handle the response. Your only responsibility is to remain aligned with dignity, certainty, and calm. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you remember who you are. And when you remember who you are, nothing external has the power to unsettle you again. When silence appears, the instinctive reaction is to chase, explain, or demand clarity. Yet this reaction quietly shifts your power away from you. Chasing after silence teaches the mind to panic, instead of remain grounded. Calm presence, on the other hand, restores balance. When you respond with emotional control rather than urgency, you communicate strength without saying a word. Stillness does not mean weakness. It means self-mastery. By refusing to react impulsively, you prevent silence from dictating your emotional state. This inner steadiness changes how situations evolve. People feel the difference when you are no longer disturbed by delayed responses or absence. Calm presence invites respect, because it signals that your peace does not depend on someone else's attention. Over time, this posture transforms dynamics. Silence loses its leverage, and your energy becomes centered again. Power always returns when you choose composure over reaction. Ignoring often feels personal, but it is rarely about worth. Silence carries information, not judgment. It reveals emotional availability, priorities, or inner conflict on the other side. When you interpret ignoring as rejection, you collapse inward and rush to fix what may not be broken. But when you read it as information, you gain clarity. Information removes illusion. It shows you where attention flows naturally and where it does not. This awareness allows you to respond consciously rather than emotionally. You stop guessing and start observing. From this space, self-respect strengthens. You no longer chase answers. You allow behavior to speak. Silence becomes a messenger rather than an enemy. Understanding this protects your confidence and prevents unnecessary emotional investment. When you view ignoring clearly, you reclaim authority over your responses and your emotional energy. Effort without self-worth creates imbalance. When you chase attention, you teach yourself that value must be earned through persistence. But attention is drawn to certainty, not pursuit. When you embody self-worth, effort naturally decreases and attraction increases. People respond to how you see yourself, not how hard you try. The moment you stop pushing for acknowledgement, your energy settles. That calm, assured presence becomes noticeable. You no longer appear available on demand, and that shift changes how others engage. Attention moves towards stability, not urgency. By standing in self-respect, you remove the need to convince. You allow interactions to unfold without pressure. This balance invites genuine interest rather than forced connection. Self-worth acts as an anchor, and attention naturally gravitates toward it. Silence challenges your inner belief about your own value. It asks whether you trust yourself without reassurance. When ignored, the mind seeks proof of worth through response. Passing this test requires stillness. Stillness is the decision to remain grounded even without confirmation. It is choosing not to abandon yourself emotionally. In this space, self-trust deepens. You realize that worth does not rise and fall with attention. This realization changes everything. You stop needing validation to feel secure. The test of silence strengthens emotional independence. Once passed, silence no longer unsettles you. It becomes neutral. From this neutral state, clarity emerges. You respond thoughtfully, rather than reactively. Life mirrors this confidence by adjusting circumstances. Silence loses its power when you no longer fear it. Detachment is often misunderstood as emotional distance, but it is emotional clarity. It allows you to care without clinging and desire without dependence. When you detach, desperation dissolves. You no longer need immediate reassurance to feel stable. This balance creates space for truth to surface. You see situations clearly, instead of through anxiety. Detachment does not push people away. It removes pressure. That removal of pressure often invites genuine connection. When it doesn't, it reveals reality without pain. Detachment protects your peace and sharpens perception. It allows you to choose rather than chase. From this position, relationships either stabilize naturally or fade honestly. Both outcomes serve growth. Clarity is always preferable to confusion, and detachment delivers it gracefully. Behavior reflects assumptions. When you assume respect, interactions shift accordingly. Inner certainty influences outer response. If you internally believe that silence diminishes your value, you behave in ways that reinforce it. But when you hold the assumption of worth and calm authority, your posture, tone, and energy change. This change influences how others treat you. Certainty requires no explanation. It communicates boundaries without words. Over time, consistent inner confidence shapes external behavior. People respond to emotional stability with respect. This process is subtle but powerful. Inner assumptions act as instructions to life. When those instructions change, outcomes change. Confidence becomes visible without effort. Silence no longer controls the dynamic. Certainty does. Chasing implies fear of loss. Stillness implies trust. What is aligned does not require pursuit. When something belongs in your life, it moves toward you naturally. Stillness allows truth to reveal itself. Either connection returns in clarity, or distance confirms misalignment. Both outcomes free you. Chasing delays this clarity. Stillness accelerates it. You conserve energy and protect dignity. What stays without being chased is real. What leaves when not pursued was never solid. Understanding this brings peace. You stop fearing loss and start trusting alignment. Stillness becomes strength. From this position, life responds honestly. You gain either connection or freedom. Both are victories.